and welcome back to the channel. My name is Muriel, and in this video I will be going over my top 10 favorite fictional worlds across all the media I consume and enjoy. Yes, I am, perhaps as a bookworm, cheating somewhat here, as I will not be sticking exclusively to literary fiction. Now, to be clear, I am considering favorite fictional worlds as a whole, not just worlds I would necessarily want to actually live in myself. The distinction is very important because there are worlds on this list I find fascinating, but would very much not want to reside in, being who I am. So what I'll do is group the worlds I wouldn't live in the 6th to 10th places, and those I would consider living in the 1st to 5th places. This also means that of all the lists I've made, consider the ranking in this one the squishiest. The world in 1st place won't be one I like exponentially more than the world in 10th place, though it will be, like I said, one I'd at least consider living in. Additionally, I'm only considering secondary worlds here, or secondary adjacent worlds. You'll see what I mean. Not far future versions of our world, as you often find in science fiction or dystopian fiction, for example. I'm going to start with 2 honourable mentions. First, there is the planet Pandora, which you find in James Cameron's Avatar. The first movie, at least, as I haven't seen the sequel. I loved Pandora's creatures, many of them flighted, its bioluminescent forests and floating cliffs, and the very overt way life on Pandora was shown to be interconnected, though life on Earth is very much interconnected as well, to be clear. I just found all of this very inspiring, so much so in fact that it led me to designing, it's a work in progress that I haven't touched in a long time, but it led me to designing an alien world of my own a few years ago. My second honourable mention is The Lands Between, from the From Software game Elden Ring, which, no, I still haven't been because I like to take my sweet time exploring everything in an open world like the completionist basket case that I am. I don't have much to say here other than the fact I'm a great lover of the expanded Soulsborne universe, which, as far as I'm concerned, does include Elden Ring, and that I take a lot of pleasure in exploring it, and, dying in it a lot as well. Onto the list proper now. In number 10, I have the world of Baslag, created by author China Mieville for his new Crobizon trilogy. Baslag is both a fascinating and, kind of horrifying in places literary universe, filled with wild magic, animal, and even plant, specifically cactus, human hybrids, interdimensional entities, and oppressive politics. It's a place I could see myself visiting. I'm sure it would be quite an experience. For a short while and under armed escort, mind you. But visit it, I still would. My number 9 is none other than G.R.R. Martin's Planetos. No one is surprised, right? The world of his A Song of Ice and Fire series, Westeros being one of its continents. Though admittedly, said continent is the main geographical setting of the story. You'll know what I mean here. I'm, as you also all know, a huge A Song of Ice and Fire nerd, so there's that. And yes, I just find that world captivating. Plus dragons exist here, which gives it automatic points. There are also multiple different cultures, religions, races, magic, etc., though I probably wouldn't want to live in most of them, let's be real. I guess living in Dawn would be kind of alright because they have a somewhat matrilineal tradition, but it's also very fucking hot there, and that's no bueno for me, so no, I guess no. My number 8 is yet another world created by good old From Software, and, well, Hidetaka Miyazaki. Told you I love that shit, and it is none other then Yharnam, / the wider world of Bloodborne. Yes, it's Bloodborne, basically. One of my all-time favourite video games, as an FYI, for which I actually have a review of sorts on the channel. Bloodborne's world, and, thus Bloodborne period, really, is an ode, a magnificent ode to gothic and Lovecraftian horror, atmosphere, and theming, and that's why I love it. Again, despite the fact I also, die in it a lot. But I swear, it's part of the fun. In a similar vein, my number 7 is Hollow Nest, the world of Team Cherry's Hollow Knight, another all-time favourite video game of mine for which I also have a review of sorts on the channel. Video games are really nicely represented on my list, if you hadn't noticed. The setting of Hollow Nest and its quirky, melancholy or terrifying sometimes, largely arthropod denizens, is hauntingly beautiful and has firmly left its mark on my mind. I took immense pleasure going through its nooks and crannies, though fuck Deep Nest and the White Palace, if you know, you know, meeting its NPCs and, bit of a flex here I'll admit, 112%ing the game on keyboard, if you please. Now, all I want is the opportunity to fall in love with the world of Silksong. I'm very sad it's still not out yet. Still very firmly in the territory of video games, like I said, they are strongly represented on this list. My number 6 isn't the most solid of entries, but it is nonetheless Erathia, the world of the game Heroes of Might and Magic 3, one of the childhood favorites, and I mean big time favorites, I still play as an adult. I'm not an expert in the game's lore by any means, by the way, and thus can't really say whether it makes much sense or not. But one thing I do know is it features a metric fuck ton of mythological creatures from lots of different cultures you can make armies with, and lots of different magic-infused environments, and I freaking love that. Seriously, I love that game. It's not even that complicated or complex of a game, but it's right here. My number 5 is the Isle and Dimension of Avalon, as you find it described in M.Z. Bradley's The Mists of Avalon, my all-time favorite, fantasy standalone, which is itself, of course, rooted in broader British Celtic mythology and spiritual tradition. I'll admit, it's arguable whether Avalon even technically counts as a world, but like I said, I'm considering both secondary and secondary adjacent worlds for the list, and I guess this Celtic otherworld counts as the latter. The version specifically described in The Mists of Avalon speaks very deeply to me as a place I wish I could retreat to, in the spiritual sense of the word, and rest my weary soul in. I'm too much of an autistic, introverted, and more or less solitary witch to take the mantle of a dedicated priestess of the goddess, but sure, it's also true that I'd be lying if I said that whole thing never once appealed to me either. My number 4 is Hyrule, the world of Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda franchise. Now, I am aware there are multiple versions of this world and multiple timelines for the game's overarching story, but I'm only really going off of the specific ones I've encountered in the Zelda games I've played, chiefly Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild, and probably more so the latter than the former, though I did really vibe with the Twilight realm and its shadow creatures, because darkness, shadows, witchy stuff, duh. Hyrule is a sprawling and a magical world filled with wonders and horrors both, and just the most delightful races of humanoid beings and critters. The bird-like Rito and Fishy Zora probably being my favorite humanoids, as you find them in Breath of the Wild. Also, Koroks. Am I right? Them little fuckers took me so bloody long to track down in Breath of the Wild, but they're goddamn cute, so it was worth it. Or, so I tell myself. My number 3 is Lyra's World from Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials series. Lyra's World, I don't know that it has another official name. If there is one, I'd be happy to know what it is. It's essentially one parallel to our own, and thus very similar in many respects, but the most notable difference between the two is that in Lyra's World, people's souls, or consciousnesses, call it what you will, are embodied outside of their own flesh as a non-human animal whose specific shape becomes fixed at puberty. These external souls are called demons, and are somewhat analogous to the concept of spirit animals, I suppose, which you find in many, if not most, human cultures. But either way, I freaking love that aspect of his Dark Materials world building. In fact, it's probably my favorite aspect of it. There are also witches in Lyra's World, which, if you know anything about me, is obviously a plus in my book. My number 2 is none other than Arda, the world of J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium. Again, is anyone surprised here? I don't know that I really need to elaborate too much upon this one, but out of principle, magical elvish cities and languages, check. Ents and giant eagles, check. And I mean, okay, giant spiders as well. I know they're technically evil, but they're still cool though. And dragons. They're also evil dragons, but they're cool. Okay, sue me. And finally, hobbits, hobbit homes, and the Shire, check. Enough said, bruh. Finally, for this very first edition of my top 10 favorite fictional worlds list, I shall place the Wizarding World of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series as my number 1. Also, as a quick little FYI, I do not personally support the vitriolic Rowling and or Harry Potter hate train, so if you personally do, you're entitled to feeling that way, but kindly leave it at the door of my channel or take it elsewhere, please and thank you. I'm not today a Potterhead by any real stretch of the word, but I certainly had an intense Harry Potter phase as a child, and the Wizarding World unreservedly captured my imagination and sense of wonder, as it did for so many people, children and adults alike, and as it still does, which is a lovely thing. As such, I must definitely retain a very special fondness for it, its all-encompassing magic, its beautiful Scottish wizarding school, who doesn't love Hogwarts, and all of the many magical creatures it features. And you all know that I love mythological creatures. Additionally, I'm happy to say that I both plan on rereading the Harry Potter books next year, my very first reread of them in fact, as an adult, and I am also very excited to play Hogwarts Legacy on PS4 next month. And there you have all 10 of my top favorite fictional worlds across different genres in media. I hope you found this list interesting and or engaging. If you want to exchange thoughts, feelings, what have you about any of them in the comments down below or on the Discord channel, you are more than welcome to do so. And on that final note, I hope you all have a lovely day, evening, or whichever time of day you prefer. Do take good care of yourselves. Thank you for the continued support, and I shall see you all reasonably soon in the next video, but until then, bye-bye.